The story of Cleopatra begins not with romance, but with danger. In the year 69 BCE, in the bustling city of Alexandria, a girl was born into the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family that had ruled Egypt since the time of Alexander the Great. Her name was Cleopatra VII Thea Philopator, and from the moment she opened her eyes, she was surrounded by power, intrigue, and betrayal. The Ptolemies were not Egyptian by blood. They spoke Greek, followed Greek customs, and ruled Egypt as foreign kings. But Cleopatra would become different. She would be the first of her dynasty to learn the Egyptian language, to embrace the ancient traditions of the land she ruled. From an early age, she understood something crucial: to survive, a ruler must be more than royal, they must be indispensable. Cleopatra was educated in philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, rhetoric, and medicine. She studied human nature as carefully as she studied politics. While others in her family relied on force, she relied on intelligence. When Cleopatra was 18, her father, Ptolemy XII, died. According to tradition, she was forced to marry her 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII, and rule jointly with him. In reality, this meant shared power and shared enemies. Cleopatra quickly proved herself decisive and ambitious. She placed her image on coins, ruled in her own name, and ignored the advisors who tried to control her brother. This boldness made her popular with the people and dangerous to the court. Within 3 years, a group of powerful men loyal to Ptolemy XIII pushed Cleopatra out of Alexandria. She was stripped of her throne and forced into exile in the Syrian desert. For many rulers, this would have been the end. For Cleopatra, it was the beginning. While in exile, Cleopatra gathered an army. But she knew that Egyptian forces alone would not be enough. The fate of Egypt no longer rested in Alexandria, it rested in Rome. At that time, Rome was tearing itself apart in civil war. Julius Caesar had defeated his rival Pompey, who fled to Egypt seeking refuge. Instead of sanctuary, Pompey was murdered by Ptolemy XIII's advisors, who believed this would please Caesar. They were wrong. When Caesar arrived in Alexandria in 48 BCE, he was furious. Pompey had been his enemy, but also his former ally. Caesar demanded stability, and Cleopatra saw her opportunity. Legend tells us that Cleopatra had herself smuggled into the royal palace rolled inside a carpet, or possibly a linen sack. Whether literal or symbolic, the story captures something true. Cleopatra knew how to make an entrance. She appeared before Caesar not as a defeated queen, but as a rightful ruler asking for justice. She spoke to him in his own language, argued her case with logic and charm, and impressed him deeply. Caesar saw in Cleopatra not just a lover, but a political partner. With Caesar's support, Cleopatra reclaimed her throne. Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile during the fighting that followed. Cleopatra became queen once more, now ruling alongside another younger brother, but this time, the power was clearly hers. Cleopatra and Caesar became lovers, and soon she gave birth to a son, Ptolemy XV. Known as Caesarion, Little Caesar, she traveled to Rome, where she lived in luxury and scandalized Roman society. A foreign queen, openly acknowledged by Caesar, with a child rumored to be his, it was too much for many Romans to accept. Then, in 44 BCE, Julius Caesar was assassinated. The world shifted overnight. Cleopatra fled Rome and returned to Egypt. Soon after, her co-ruler brother died under mysterious circumstances, leaving her to rule alone with her son. Cleopatra now faced a dangerous question. How could Egypt survive without Caesar's protection? The answer would come in the form of another Roman, Mark Antony. After Caesar's death, Rome was ruled by 3 men: Octavian, Lepidus, and Mark Antony. Antony controlled the eastern provinces, including Egypt. In 41 BCE, he summoned Cleopatra to meet him. Cleopatra did not come quietly. She sailed into Tarsus on a golden barge, dressed as the goddess Isis, surrounded by music, incense, and silk. It was a performance, and it worked. Antony was captivated. Unlike Caesar, Antony was not disciplined or cautious. He was emotional, passionate, and drawn to pleasure. Cleopatra understood this instantly. But what began as strategy soon became something more. They fell deeply in love. Cleopatra and Antony spent years together in Alexandria, ruling, celebrating, and planning. They had 3 children and dreamed of creating a powerful Eastern Empire that could rival Rome itself. But in Rome, Octavian was watching. Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, was cold, patient, and ruthless. He painted Cleopatra as a dangerous seductress who had enslaved Antony and threatened Roman values. Slowly, public opinion turned against them. In 31 BCE, the conflict exploded into war. The decisive moment came at the Battle of Actium, a massive naval clash between Octavian's forces and the fleet of Antony and Cleopatra. In the chaos of battle, Cleopatra's ships retreated. Antony, seeing her leave, followed her, abandoning his fleet. It was a fatal mistake. Their forces were crushed. Cleopatra and Antony fled back to Egypt, knowing the end was near. As Octavian's army marched on Alexandria, despair set in. False rumors reached Antony that Cleopatra was dead. Broken, believing he had lost everything, Antony fell on his sword. Mortally wounded, he was carried to Cleopatra, dying in her arms. Cleopatra was captured, but she refused to be humiliated. Octavian planned to parade her through Rome as a trophy of war. She would not allow it. In August of 30 BCE, Cleopatra took her own life, according to legend, by the bite of an asp, a sacred snake. She was 39 years old. With her death, the ancient kingdom of Egypt fell under Roman control. Caesarion was killed. The age of pharaohs ended forever, but Cleopatra did not vanish into history. For centuries, she has been remembered as a temptress, a villain, a romantic figure. Yet the truth is more powerful. Cleopatra was a brilliant strategist, a skilled linguist, a ruler fighting against impossible odds. She used every tool available: intelligence, diplomacy, symbolism, and yes, love, to protect her kingdom. She lost, not because she was weak, but because she stood against the rising force of Rome. And that is why her story still matters, because Cleopatra was not just the last queen of Egypt. She was the last to challenge an empire and be remembered forever.